One of our favorite things about Points and Miles is the ability to make our kids' dreams come true. Today, we have a special guest to share their recent trip to Scotland and London for a Harry Potter themed getaway. Welcome to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Jess. Let's talk points. We have a special guest on today. I feel like she does not need an introduction at this point because you're all very familiar with her. It is Megan, our amazing digital business manager. She got back, a couple weeks ago?
Like literally 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, from a trip with her entire family of 5. They went to Scotland first, and then they headed down to London. And so she is here to tell us all about it. I think this started out as a birthday request by one of your daughters, right? Is that how this trip came about?
We've kind of always told them that, like, when you turn 10, you can pick the trip and, like, help plan it. And my oldest is, like, she's on, like, book 5 of Harry Potter. So she was like, I want to go see where they filmed the movie and all the Harry Potter stuff in Scotland and London. And we're like, okay, well, I guess that's our trip for over Christmas.
Your 10-year-old birthday trips are way cooler than mine. Mine are like, you can choose somewhere in the continental United States.
Oh, I thought you meant when you were 10. I was like, when I was 10,
no.
my birthday was like, we can go to Toys R Us and you can pick a toy. I just think it's cool, though, because, you know, if someone didn't have points and miles, I'm assuming if their kid wanted a Harry Potter birthday, it would be like, okay, let's have like Harry Potter decorations or like maybe let's go to Harry Potter World. But you literally took your child to Scotland to see where like the scenes that actually inspired Harry Potter. Right. So.
Yeah. And like, as like all my other trips, like we don't use points on everything. We stayed at Airbnbs and used the Hyatt family rate plan on a couple of things. So it's like, it wasn't nearly free, but it was probably cheaper than we could have went to Disney World or Universal in Florida.
Like, totally. All right. So tell us how you got to Scotland.
All right. We flew on our favorite airline, KLM. We fly out of Toronto. So we're in upstate New York and Rochester. So it's about a 2-hour drive to Toronto. And we booked our flights before the recent devaluation. So we only paid 85,000 points total for 2 adults and 3 kids under 12. Because Flying Blue gives that special discount that's 25% off for kids ages 2 to 11. And that is like super beneficial for us. It really adds up. The taxes and fees were only like $100 a person, so not terrible. But like if I was booking this flight now, it would, with the new price point, it would cost 25,000 points an adult, which previously was 20,000, and 18,725 points a kid, which is still really, really great to Europe.
Still a steal.
Yeah, it's still better than like what you're going to find most places with most other airlines.
And actually, this is the first time I've done this, but when I went to check in, it gave us the option to upgrade to premium economy, and it was only $198 a person. And for me, I was like, what? I should just do this. Like, it's Christmas. It's a like special trip for her birthday. I'm like, let's just do it. I really enjoyed it. Like, I'm tall and I liked the extra leg room. The kids did not care at all. Like, it really didn't make a difference to them. But for $200 to upgrade, we paid about $300 per person total to fly to Scotland. And I think that was like a really great deal.
Premium economy during the holidays, like
we left the day after
time. Yeah. So this is not an off-peak time to travel. So I would say that was an amazing deal that you got.
And the other thing that was really great is in Toronto, the KLM Crown Lounge is included in your priority pass. So that normally you have to be flying business class on KLM or pay to enter. And it's like really expensive, like $75 a person for a one-time pass. But your priority pass, so all those cards that give you the priority pass, like my husband and I each had the Amex Platinum. So we each could he took one guest, like one kid, and I took the other 2 kids as my guests. And that was really nice. So we had a long layover in Amsterdam. Sometimes when you book the cheapest flights, the layovers are a little longer. And it wasn't that terrible. It was like 4 hours. But we actually used our priority pass again for the Aspire Lounge. There's 2 of them, and they're in different terminals. So this one was like the number 41. It wasn't that great, but it was better than just sitting out in the terminal and watching. Like, it was very busy, like obviously over the holidays. But we did have to go in person to scan the QR code to get on the wait list. You couldn't do it from the app. And then we landed in Edinburgh. It was like 5 p.m. It was already dark. And I'm going to get to the things that I kind of screwed up planning for this trip. Well, that was one of them. And we picked up our rental car and we drove 35 minutes to Stirling, which is like northwest of Edinburgh. And we stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, and it was just your very basic, like what you would expect in the US. We had 2 rooms, and they were only 18,000 points per night. So for us, like we were heading to the Scottish Highlands, so I wanted to get out of the city and kind of on our way north already. But so coming back to the things I screwed up on, obviously not every trip is going to go perfectly, but traveling between Christmas and New Year's, you're at like the darkest part of the year, especially traveling further north to Scotland. It was pitch black by 4 p.m. And I don't think I expected that. I was thinking it was going to be like 5:30, like kind of like how we have at home, because we're pretty far north, like we're almost at Canada. But it was so dark that it really cut our days like super short. And
I would have been the same as you. I'd been like, oh, 5:30. And you're like, wait, it's only 4? It feels like we should be going to bed now. It's so dark.
Exactly. And it also just took a long time to drive everywhere. Like Google Maps would be like, this takes 3 hours, and it would take us almost 5. Like,
oh my God.
That's rough.
And you're driving on the opposite side of the road. And like Tim has done that before. We were in Australia a couple years ago, and like we're like, oh, it's no big deal. But it's just different in Scotland. Like, it's dark. There's no street lights. You're on, like, 1-lane roads.
I was going to say, we have driven there, and it is not, I have not driven there. Ted drove there, because I would have gotten in an accident, because the roads are so narrow.
Yeah. And, like, it wasn't terrible. It was just, things just were a lot slower than, like, when I was, like, mapping everything out on Google Maps. I'm like, okay, well, this takes 2 hours to get here. And I'm like, there's no way we're going to get there in time and then get back before it's like so dark and ready for dinner time. Like,
so it was like things were taking longer. It was getting darker earlier than you expected. So it was like
exactly
the perfect storm of
if you were going to go not again at this time of year, I would have definitely lightened up the plans. And like, I don't even think I had that much planned, because the kids always just slow things down anyways.
Yeah.
So from Stirling, we drove up to Loch Ness, and we on the way stopped at a bunch of really, really cool places. And like Scotland's just so beautiful, and it was rainy, but it wasn't freezing cold. It was like high 40s, low 50s. So, but we packed like snow boots and like winter coats, and I'm glad we did. But we stopped in Glencoe, and this is where Hagrid's hut is filmed in the movies. And you can like park at these like little like hotel, and you like walk up a trail, and it's maybe like a 10-15 minute walk. I did almost wipe out in the mud, but it really wasn't that like a hard hike. And you go up, and as soon as you get up there and you look, the kids were like, oh my God, this is where it was. And you can see just literally, like, I was pulling up pictures from the movie on my phone, and it just matched up so perfectly. Like, obviously the trees were a little taller because it's been 20 years, but the overall like view, it was very cool. And the girls were like acting out the movie. They're like, oh, this is where they came up over the hill running to Hagrid.
That's so cute.
That's awesome.
And then we stopped at Fort Williams just for a quick lunch and take a break. So I was like kind of halfway. And then we made it to the Glenfinnan Viaduct. And this is those like famous scenes where you see like the Harry Potter like steam train, the Hogwarts Express, like coming across the viaduct. And you can just get out of your car and see it from right there. But they also have like a viewpoint you can walk up to. So we kind of like hiked up the hill a little bit, and you stand there and you get those like perfect views of the viaduct, the curve. And in certain times of year, you can actually see the steam train that is like looks like Hogwarts Express driving across it. But I think that only runs from like April to October. So we missed that part, but it still was like a lot of people were there to see it. And at the same stop is actually Loch Shiel. And that's where like the Black Lake from the Harry Potter, that's all at the same stop. So you can go see the viaduct, and then you just kind of cross the road, and that's where Loch Shiel is to see the Black Lake from those parts of the movies. And we stayed in Fort Augustus, and this was like this very southern tip of Loch Ness. And we stayed it's called the Highland Club, and I booked it through Airbnb. So these are like individual condos, like owned by people. So these are like their vacation homes. And this place in the summertime has like tennis courts and playgrounds, and you're right on the lake, so you can go like paddleboarding or boating or like whatever you want. And I was like, it was really nice for winter because it was like cozy. And it kind of looked like Hogwarts. So it was like this old abbey, like built in the 1800s. So it was like all black stone with like the peaks and the bell towers. And when we got there, it was dark. So the next morning I woke up and I was like, oh my God, like it literally looks like we woke up at Hogwarts.
That's awesome.
And we only had 2 nights here, and I wish we probably had like 3 to 4. Like we could have spent so much more time in the Scottish Highlands, but we were kind of on a time crunch because of the holidays and trying to get back to London so we can get our flights home.
Back then. Darn, right? Like,
exactly.
Oh, shoot, we have to do it again.
And so from Loch Shiel, we kind of explored that area. We went up to Urquhart Castle, and we went up to Inverness and the Culloden Battlefield. 2 other things I had on my plans that we didn't get to is the Balmoral Castle. So that's like the summer home for the royal family. And in the month of December, the grounds are free. So you can just go and walk the grounds at the castle, and it's like, it doesn't cost you anything, and you just go and walk. And I really wanted to go do that, but again, we just ran out of time. And then same with the reindeer center. We saw like wild reindeer just on the sides of the road, which was really cool. But there's an actual place that like breeds them and like helps to keep them healthy. And you can go, and they have like paddocks where you can go pet them and feed them and go on like little like sleigh rides where the reindeer pull you. And I was like, that would be really, really fun, but we'll have to add that to the list for next time.
I am obsessed with Scotland, as Alex knows, and now Megan
Yes.
knows. I feel like this is going to be very polarizing. I haven't seen the Harry Potter movies or like read the books. And so if I'm just nodding along, it's because I don't really know. I know like a little bit. Like I know Diagon Alley. That's about it.
And honestly, I didn't either until the kids got into it. And then like we read like the first 3 books as a family. And then Rose kind of just like took off and started reading them on her own.
That's
Well,
so awesome.
I'll claim being the Potterhead of the group because I read all of the books like when they came out. And I've seen all the movies multiple times. I'm sure you've seen all the movies multiple times now, though, too, Megan, with your kids.
Oh, yeah. Like,
especially to prep for. Did you guys like watch them again before you left to like get a refresher?
At least the first couple, because I was like, I want to make sure it was all like fresh in our minds.
Yeah, well, it just makes it so much more fun. We did I know you're going to get to and talk about London, the Harry Potter studios. Before we went there, we watched all the movies again too. Like some of them were on the plane, so we watched them on the plane right over. And it makes everything a little more, I don't know, a little more special when it's fresh in your mind. It like with your girls being like, this is where they did this and this is where they did this. And then as a mom, you're probably like, yes. I got the reaction I was hoping for. They love this.
Seriously, they were like, this is so magical. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So from the Scottish Highlands, we headed back to Edinburgh, and it was like a 3.5-hour drive, but it had rained so much the night before that like the roads were washed out. So there were like little mudslides kind of everywhere. We did see a really bad accident on the way, but we just like went slow. Like it was like the speed limit's like 40 miles per hour, and we were going like 25 just to like, and there's like pull offs everywhere. So we'd pull over and let people pass us if they were kind of like up our butts. Like, it wasn't worth it.
They're like, get off the road, tourist.
Exactly. Like, we're in a rental car. We're not from here.
Oh my gosh.
So we dropped off a rental car back at the airport and just took an Uber into the city. It was maybe like 20 pounds. It wasn't very much. And we stayed at another Holiday Inn Express. And we actually used our free night certificates here. And we were able to use, and again, we had 2 rooms. And I used a free night certificate on each one and then just topped them up. I think it was like 10,000 points each one needed. So you can find nights here for like 40 to 60,000 points per night, which I thought was a really good use of those free night certificates because for Christmas, Edinburgh has like Christmas markets and everything. So there were a lot of tourists there. So I feel like the cash price, this was a really good value for those free night certificates we get for our $99 annual fee on our card.
And I assume it was 2 rooms there also. Like,
yeah, so we had 2 rooms.
Pretty much any hotel Megan stayed at in the UK, in Europe in general, she's going to need 2 rooms for her family of 5. So and just keep that in mind.
Yeah. And we didn't get connecting rooms at either Holiday Inn hotel, which is no big deal. So like my husband took like 2 kids the first night and I took 1. And then the second time we swapped and he got 1 kid and I got 2 kids. I think it makes it fair. But in Edinburgh, so this is where like the Balmoral Hotel is where J.K. Rowling finished writing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which is the last book of the series. So you can actually book this hotel and stay in the room, and they have like the desk and like they have like stuff like set up like where you can like see like memorialized almost. But we kind of it was right next to the train station, so we kind of just like walked by and we're like, oh, that's where it was. Like it was, and we just like talked about it. Victoria Street was the real like show stealer, and that's where like Diagon Alley was kind of like inspired off of. There's a Harry Potter store there. There was like a queue like down the street for people waiting, and the girls are like, "Can we go in?" I'm like, "I'm not waiting in the rain in this line. Like we're going to the studio tour in London. They will have
We'll
all the
see
same
all
things."
the same stuff there.
Yeah, and so it was so funny. So our kids look like those little like sad kids looking in the windows, little like hands like looking like, oh,
Like, my mom is so mean.
but it was still really cool to see. And also in Edinburgh is the Greyfriars Cemetery, and that is where some of the name inspiration had come from for J.K. Rowling. And obviously, like Edinburgh Castle, and then the Christmas markets were running. So there was a big Christmas market, kind of like, I can't remember exactly what the area was, but the castle is kind of like up on the hill above us. And we just like walked through there. We had snacks. We checked out all the like the stuff, like the trinkets they were selling. We actually bought an ornament that was a Loch Ness monster, and it was like handmade, cut out of wood from like whiskey barrels. And I was like, this is a
that's
really
cool.
cute like little souvenir and
Yeah.
it doesn't take up a lot of space.
So, Megan, how was the location of your hotel? Did you walk to most of these places, or how
Yep.
were you getting around?
Yeah, we walked everywhere in Edinburgh.
Oh,
Like
that's
we
awesome.
didn't take. I have the one clip on my Instagram of it was just like pouring rain walking to the train station, and I was like, this is our only option, because even it was maybe like 12 minutes, and I was like, it's not worth it taking a taxi for 12 minutes to walk. Let's just deal with the rain and get there and be done with it.
I think I replied to some of your stories and I was like, you are getting an authentic Scottish experience, because it's not Scotland if it's not like cloudy and raining.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. So that was so we had 4 days in Scotland, and then the next morning we took the train from Edinburgh Waverley Station to London King's Cross. And I actually ended up booking first class tickets. Like the regular tickets would have been totally fine, but I was like, it's a special trip. We've saved money on the hotels. Like, let's just splurge a little bit.
You've got some travel mom squad rubbing off on you there, Megan. I can see it coming through.
But it was a 4.5 hour train ride, so
Yeah.
it was kind of long. And we had so they fed us. So we got lounge access at the Edinburgh train station, and they had like sandwiches and croissants and like hot tea and coffee and like sodas, like juice. And then on the train, we also got fed a meal, and then they did like drink service. So they did like hot drinks in the mornings, like coffee and tea. And then as we got closer, they did like sodas, and then you could get beer or wine, and that was just included in your ticket. So I was like, this is kind of like a really relaxing, like 4.5 hours after we just spent 4 days in the mud and rain.
Yeah, seriously. Was that your first time to Scotland, Megan, or had you
Yep.
been before?
It was. No, that was a
Okay.
new one for me. But we had been
Nice.
to London before. So
Yeah.
that's why we kind of changed it up a little bit on like the things that we were doing. And then in London King's Cross Station is platform 9 3/4, just like you would see in the Harry Potter movies. It has blown up. Like it has become such a crazy tourist site thing. There was a queue that literally started outside the train station. So you had to wait in line, and then they would walk you up to the next line, and there was another line. And I'm like, and then people were taking pictures, and there was this guy like flipping people's like scarves up to look like they were like going platform. And he would just have like the most miserable face. I was like, dude, like this job does not look fun.
That is really funny. When we were just last in London in October, we were at King's Cross. I didn't see all of that, and I'm really glad I didn't, because I know my 9-year-old would have been like, can we go in can we do this? I just got a picture of him outside, like with the sign that said King's Cross
Yeah.
Station. We're like, we're good to go. That's all we need.
Yeah, people were waiting a long time. And then they had like a professional photographer where you could buy your photos. It was literally like being at Disney World. Like, we didn't do it. And I'm kind of glad we did. I was like, let's just get, so we got to London. It was New Year's Eve. And I was a little worried about the streets closing and the tube stations closing. So I was like, let's just get to our hotel, drop our bags off, and then we can like figure out what we're doing from here. We ended up taking just in London, it's so easy. Black cabs can fit 6 people. And even if you have a stroller, like you can just like push your stroller right in and all your luggage. And I have to say that for a family that's of more than 4 people, London is so wonderful to travel to because it just seems so accessible to get around.
Yeah.
Between the tube and just like any black cab that you hail, you could just like hop in and fit 6 people.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
So we stayed at the Hyatt Regency London Blackfriars. This is a newer Hyatt hotel in London. And so we got there, it was New Year's Eve. And for New Year's Eve, they're closing up all the roads before they do like an evening like fireworks display, like over kind of like the London Eye and Big Ben. our hotel was inside the like gated area where you needed like wristbands, but the hotel gave us wristbands for free. So if you are going to London for New Year's, this was a really great hotel, and you don't have to like set your alarm and log on to buy tickets for New Year's Eve. They just they literally, when we walked in, they were like, here's your wristband. This will get you into like the red area. If anybody questions you, just show you a wristband and you'll be fine. Or like, I didn't even know that was a perk, and that was really great.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately, we did not stay up for New Year's. We were too tired. So we could see the like fireworks a little bit from our window. So again, we had 2 rooms. We used points for room 1, and we paid 77,000 points for our 4 nights. And so we had a couple peak and off-peak nights. So like some nights were like 17,000, some were 20,000, some were, I forget what the other one, like 24,000?
23.
23, yeah. So we kind of like mixed it in there. And then our second room, this hotel participates in the Hyatt family rate plan. So that gets you up to 50% off the cash rate of the hotel. So we ended up paying about $700 for 4 nights in our second.
That is really good.
That is a steal.
Yeah, so they were like $300 to $400 a night, and then we got half off of that.
Wow.
What I've learned is that these rooms do, like this opportunity does sell out. So like if you're traveling during a very busy time of year, it's best to like, I just did it on the Hyatt chat, and I just say like, hey, we're traveling to London on these days. I already have this room booked. Can I book a family rate plan room for my kids in the second? And they were like, yeah, like no problem. They just did it right through the chat.
The other thing too is that, you know, with the family plan rate, you can only use it for cash. You can't get like 50% off the points rate. But if you paid 77,000 points for room number 1, it wouldn't even make sense to use Hyatt points for room number 2 if it's only $700.
That's exactly what my thoughts were too. I was like, I'm not going to spend all these points when I can get a room for like $175 a night in the middle of London during New Year's.
That's awesome. That's a great tip for families, because I think I have never stayed there because it's a pretty, I think it opened last year, and so it's a pretty new addition to the Hyatt scene in London. And so I've never stayed there, but that would if I were traveling with my family, that would 100% be my choice.
Right.
So Megan, did the standard rooms sleep only 2, or did they sleep 3? Because I know you guys have 5, and a lot of times standard rooms in London only, or in Europe, I mean, only sleep 2. Occasionally you can find some that will sleep 3, but.
So standard rooms fit 2 adults and 1 child, but when you book it online, you can only book for 2 adults, and then you have to contact the hotel to add the child, and it's, I think, £100 a night for the rollaway.
Okay. So and is there an age? Do you know what the age is for?
12 and under.
Is it 12 and under? Okay.
Yeah. But so like the next level up, you can book club access rooms, and they're only a few more points a night, and those fit 3 people, and suites fit 3 people. So Jess accidentally sent me a sleep upgrade award when she was sending me a club access award. So I was able to apply the suite upgrade award to one of our rooms, and
I went to send her a club access, and I accidentally sent her a suite, and you can't, like, once you send it, you can't re-gift it. And so I was like, Megan, enjoy your suite in London.
Merry Christmas, Megan.
So we did have a club access award on our standard king room, and then
so that one you could have fit 3 in.
We could have fit 3 with a rollaway.
So technically, if you're a family of 6, you could get 2 standard rooms or 2 club access rooms, basically.
Right. Yeah, and the club access rooms weren't that much more. They were maybe like 5,000 more points per night. So like if you didn't have a club access award, it would probably be worth it to do that.
Yeah. And is that the same thing where it's 2 adults and a kid, 12 and under?
Yeah.
Same for the suites?
The suites, I think, are 3 adults.
Okay. I'm thinking of myself because like my kids are getting older. I've got an almost 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I'm like, gosh, why is a 13-year-old considered an adult?
I know.
My 13-year-old is not very big. He should still be considered a kid.
The other thing, too, is if you're globalist with Hyatt, I have not tried at this hotel, so I don't know. But a lot of times they will waive those rollaway fees for globalists if you ask. And so I've done that before where I'm like, I'm a globalist. Is there any chance you could waive the fee? And they'll just take it off my bill. So
that's a great tip.
Always worth asking.
And we also used Pam's upgrade template. And I was like, we're coming to London for New Year's, celebrating our daughter's 10th birthday. And like, just whatever. I literally just like copy and paste and changed a few things. And we got there and they had a cake and like pink balloons like all over our like suite, and it was really exciting for the girls to walk in. They were like, "This is the best." And after we were coming from our very basic Holiday Inn hotels in Scotland, they were like, this is so much better.
Oh, that's great. We'll put a link in the show notes for that template, because seriously, people have the best luck with that thing, and I need to start using it more. Every time I'm like, shoot, forgot to use that.
Yeah, and I just emailed maybe like 2 weeks in advance and was just like the general like Hyatt, Regency, Blackfriars email, and I was just like, here's the template. And then they emailed me back maybe like 5 days before and were like, we're looking forward to your stay. They didn't say anything about doing anything. They were just like, thank you so much. We'll see what we can do. Because I had also asked for connecting rooms, which the suites don't have connecting rooms to them, which again, like they put us on the same floor. We were maybe like 2 rooms apart. So it really wasn't a big deal at all. But the club lounge, I thought it was nice, but it's not enough for dinner. So like we've stayed at some club lounges where you go in the evening for cocktail hour and you could have like a full buffet. This was very much like done like British like afternoon tea. So it had like the little 3 tiers, and you would have like a couple snacks on it and then like a dessert. So that was like the evening cocktail hour. But if you do have the club lounge access or global status, you do get the free breakfast, and it's a buffet, and it's held in the Cricket Club restaurant. Which is like their lobby's tiered. So there's like a lobby where you enter and you can go up a couple steps, and there's like 2 restaurants and elevators again. And so it was up there. And this was like a full buffet. They had like a bread station with croissants. It was made to order coffee. The girls had hot chocolate a couple of the mornings, and it was really, really good. So I felt like for London, this was a really good use of those club access awards, especially if you have a bigger family and you're like, it's just so much easier to feed people right at the hotel before you like get out for the day.
And London is not cheap. And so, feeding a family of 6. But that's really nice because sometimes when hotels have club lounges, the breakfast is just in the club lounge. So I always like it when, you have the opportunity to go to the actual restaurant and eat there. But it sounds like club lounge access is worth it, even for people who don't have status. Like just booking a club access room right off the bat would be worth it for a family.
Yeah. And I think my only complaint was that the evening cocktail hour was in like the bar area off of the lobby, and there was not a lot of space for families. There was like 1 booth that could fit 6 people, and then a bunch of tables that could fit like 2 or 4 people. So for us, it was kind of like we had to like wait a while to get a table that could fit all of us, like but all 4 nights. And like I understand like New Year's Eve, like it was busy. It was probably way busier than they expected. But the other 3 nights it really emptied out, and I still like waiting while all these other tables are open. And I'm like, can we just sit at those other chairs that are open? But they really were trying to accommodate us at like a table altogether.
Yeah.
So like I said, we had been to London before, but we really didn't do much. We kind of just did like outside things. So I really wanted to take the girls to the British Museum. I had been before and Tim had been before, but it was like one of those things where we're like, we watched the Night at the Museum movies, and there's one where they go to the British Museum. So I was like, this will be familiar. They'll recognize a lot of this stuff. And it's free entry. So we just had to get our time tickets online, totally free. I do recommend doing the timed entry because we had like 10:30 in the morning tickets. And when we left at like 1 p.m., the line was like wrapped around the building, and like we walked right in. So get early in the morning, get there before the crowds. It will totally be worth it. And so the hotel is right across from the Blackfriars tube station, but we actually didn't even take the tube. London is so walkable, and it's like relatively flat. So like we just like walked from the hotel right along the Thames all the way down, like past the London Eye to Big Ben to Westminster Abbey, and then we kind of like went up past Trafalgar Square up to the British Museum. And it was a long walk, but it was so nice. It wasn't raining.
I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm like, that is a long walk. Jess would have been on the tube.
Yeah, round trip, our walking that day, we did like 15,000 steps. So it was like 7 miles by like 3 p.m. But luckily, like we don't have a stroller anymore. Our kids are good walkers. They don't complain because we're like, oh, well, we'll pop in this store. We'll go get a snack. Or like we just like keep everybody moving.
Yeah.
And like Alex did, we did the Harry Potter studio tour, and we had actually taken the train from London. So we took a black cab to Euston Station, and we got there and we're trying to book our tickets. And I'm like, these tickets say it takes 45 minutes and the website said it takes 20 minutes. I'm like, why is this not working? And we realized there was a train strike that day. So all the express trains were not running.
Oh my gosh.
So we had to book a regional train. It took us 45 minutes instead of 20 minutes. But again, everybody on the train, I'm pretty sure, was going to the Harry Potter tours. So it was very quiet and everybody's just kind of like keeping to themselves. And then
because I had so many people when I shared about this on stories were like, how did you get there? And I'm like, well, I rode in my sister's car from her house. We drove there. So there was so many questions. And I know I just told people like, oh, go to the website. They have instructions on how to get there. But I know you kind of had that hiccup with, the strike. But was it yeah, it was still easy to get there because we weren't coming from like, downtown London. Was it still pretty easy to get there?
Yeah, it was so easy. Like we got to the train station, we just went to the ticket machine and just bought whatever tickets were available it was like Watford Junction station. And then just like hopped on the next train and we got there. And so once we arrived at the train station, as soon as you walk outside, there's big like tour buses that are like all like Harry Potter studio tour. And there was a person like directing traffic for people to get into the line for the queue. And it was a double-decker bus. So you got on and then they had like a TV and they played like a little like introduction. It was like a 15-minute ride from the train station. And so they did like a little like video with some of the actors from the movies. And they were just like, this was our home for 10 years while we were filming the movies. And it was really cute and kind of like a good introduction to get you started for the day.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but online, it was like an average tour takes 3 hours. We were there for like 5.5 hours. And the kids were like, can we come back?
You can spend so long there. We were like, oh, well, I don't remember how long we were there, but it was definitely longer than we expected. And we didn't, like, you're not going to see everything. There is so much to see. And we walked past everything, but we didn't stop at like everything there was to see because it's just like, we'll be here for so long.
Yeah. And it's like they have like little videos like walking you through like how they put the wigs and makeup on and like all like there were literally just so much. And the really cool part was when so you went through like the like little entrance part and you get in and they were like, is anybody celebrating a birthday? And like Rose and like 2 other kids. And then some adult raised their hand and they like invited them up. And they got to like open the doors into like the dining hall of Hogwarts. And that was like, I thought like that was a really special thing that they allowed people to do. But it's just so funny. There's like one adult who's like 35. This is up there with all these little like 10-year-olds.
It's like the Disney adults who like cut in line to take pictures with the characters. And I'm like, just let the kids.
Don't even get me started on that. Last time we were at Disneyland, it was a joke. And I was like, I am so frustrated with all these adults. My kids want a picture with Spider-Man. Get out of the way.
Yeah, but so like that was really, really special. And they gave her like a birthday pin that was like in the book and movie, Hagrid makes a cake for Harry and it says like happy birthday, but it's like spelled incorrectly. So they had pins that said happy birthday and it was like the top of the cake. So like that was really cute.
That's cute.
And so like they really made it special even in like it was such a long day. Like we had lunch there and by the end I was kind of like, let's get moving. Let's get back because we had to take the train back into London and it was already dark. And I was like, all right, I think we had enough. And they seriously were like, can we come back to London just to do this again? Like they loved it so much.
That is amazing. What did they get since they didn't get to go in Scotland to, the store, what did they get at Harry Potter Studios?
So Rose is a Ravenclaw. So she got a Ravenclaw like sweatshirt.
Cute.
The only thing we kind of ran into is the kids' sizes topped out at like 9-10. So she had to get like an adult extra small. But it's fine because it's a sweatshirt. Amelia got a Gryffindor scarf, and then Eleanor got like a spell book. Like it has like all the spells in it from like all the book and stuff like that. So they're all broken down. And
I felt like the gift shop was one of my favorite parts. Like it is so well done. There's like I loved seeing all of the wands along the wall, like just walls of wands. It was really cool. That's what a couple of my kids got were the wands.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
And so that was like our second to last day. And I'm glad we we set aside that day just for that. And I'm glad we did because it was like, it filled almost a whole day for us.
Yeah. I wanted to say one other thing, Megan. How far in advance did you buy your tickets? Because if you want to go here, you do need to buy them pretty far. We bought ours, I think 6 months in advance.
Yeah, it was pretty far in advance because like we had our flights since pretty much last like February, March timeframe.
Yeah.
So I probably bought these tickets over the summer.
Yeah. That's same. Yeah.
And we had like one of the earliest entries for the day, which I also thought was a good idea just to give us as much time there.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that as well. Like go early in the day because you're going to be there a while.
So then our last day in London, we had another full like Harry Potter day. So first we went to the Tower of London. And like I've been to London a couple of times now and I've never seen the Crown Jewels. So I was like, this is the one thing I want to do and I'm going to make sure it happens. So we had 9 a.m. timed entry for the Tower of London, and we spent like a couple hours there and got pictures like the Tower Bridge. And so, and that's the other thing. The Night at the Museum movies at the end, they kind of like show the same view. And when we got home, the girls were like, "That's just like in the movie." And I was like, "I'm not sure." And they pull up the movie and they're like, "Look, we were right."
I love the Tower of London. That's like my favorite. That's one of my favorite things to do in London. I've been like 4 or 5 times. So I probably should not go back because I feel like I've seen everything there is to see.
They're going to ask you to start giving the tour, Jess.
Yeah. Maybe I could be one of those
a beefeater.
A beefeater, and I could give the tour.
I actually think you have to have major qualifications.
Yeah, I do not qualify as a beef eater, but you know, in my dreams, maybe.
She wants to do it for the outfit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that hat.
So then for the afternoon, so we went back to the hotel and took like a break and had some lunch. And then we had tickets for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child play. So it's not a musical, it's a stage play. The original stage play was written as 2 parts. And that's how it was originally like in the US. You can see it in, I think, Chicago, New York City, and maybe LA. But now, since COVID in the US, it's got kind of like smushed into one 3-hour play. So they cut some of the stuff out. Supposedly they kept all like the magical parts. But so London is the only place you can see it and it's like original, the way it was written. And so I really wanted to make sure we did that. I'm like, well, if we're doing Harry Potter, we're doing this too. So we had tickets for 2 p.m. for part 1. And it was long. It was 2 hours and 45 minutes with a 20-minute intermission. But I have to say, there was so much magic, like on stage magic, that I would look at Tim and be like, how did they do that? Like, I am watching very intently and I cannot figure out how they're doing some of these tricks.
That's so funny.
And so after the first part, we had like a maybe hour and a half before we could get back into the theater for the evening 7 o'clock part 2. And so we just like walked around the area right there. There was a Christmas market, and that's where like the Lego store is and the M&M store. It's kind of like Times Square of New York City. So we kind of just like walked around the area, got some snacks at the Christmas market. We had churros with Nutella and then went back to the show. And the second half was 2.5 hours with a 20-minute intermission. And even though it was so long, the kids did amazingly well. Like they were not bothered by the length of it because it was so engaging and they were so familiar with the characters. So like the general idea is that it's like 18 years later and now like Harry Potter's kids are going to Hogwarts and they want to like go back in time to save Cedric Diggory. And like, so it's like, it's really, really engaging and it ties in the old stories with the new story, And I loved it. And I would totally go see it again, even at more than like 5 hours worth of stage time.
I really wanted to see that. And I was a little nervous, like, ooh, that's really long. How would my kids do? Do you feel like, now this is crazy. I'll admit this is crazy. But when you have points and miles, you can do crazy things. So do you think, because I know the show is it's not going to last very much longer, right?
Yeah, it was set to close in March of this year, but they extended it, I'm pretty sure, through the end of June.
Okay. Like, I don't know how I would ever squeeze that in, but you're like, no, you should really see the full thing. Don't go see it in New York for 3 hours. Go see the whatever 4, 5, almost 6-hour show. Like, how did they cut out like literally almost half the show?
I know. I don't know how they did it, but like they were like, they would shoot their wands and like fireworks would come out and they were like different colors depending on who they were. And then like they would go to the Ministry of Magic, and then like the movies, they walk into a telephone booth and get like sucked in and like they end up in the Ministry of Magic. And on stage, they're wearing their robes. They walk up to the telephone booth. They like dial the number and then just they're gone. And I'm like, where did that go?
Okay, so obviously we know your oldest is 10 because this was a 10th birthday trip. But how old are your twins? Are they 8?
They're 8. They turned 8 in August, so like 8.5.
Okay, so for 10 and 8, you thought they were
totally
because they're
fine.
huge Harry Potter fans, so they were fine.
Yeah. And there was only like one part that was like a jump scare. Like Eleanor was fell out of her chair because it was so like nobody was expecting it. But other than that, there were some like scary things, but I don't think it was terrifying. There were a lot of kids there and nobody was like crying or anything. So I don't think it was like terrifyingly scary.
So should I go to London or should I just see it in New
you
York?
have a sister who lives there. You might as well just go.
And you just gotta pay for flights.
Right? I know. I don't know if I can squeeze it in. June is creeping up.
Yeah, I know that. But so that was our last day in London. It was a really long day, and I'm glad we kind of did that at the end of our trip because like our times were all changed over. We had no problem the kids didn't even have a problem staying up till like 9-10 o'clock. But like we got back to the hotel and they were like out. Like I was packing with the lights on and they were sleeping. And so the next morning we flew home from London Heathrow, and I actually booked us on British Airways because it was a direct flight into Toronto. And this was a little bit more than our KLM flight. So it was 30,000 points a person. So we paid 150,000 points and $481 total for the 5 of us. I thought the flight was really great. The flight attendants were really nice. I didn't book kids' meals for the kids and they still got them. So I don't know if there's like an automatic like age that they do that. And then the other thing that was really nice is at London Heathrow, we were sitting by the gate, but there was a lot of people there because it was getting ready to board. The flight attendants came around and they're like, oh, you have the kids. Would you like to pre-board before everybody else? And I'm like, yes.
Nice.
Like we have carry-on luggage and I was a little stressed about getting like overhead space.
Yeah.
And so they allowed everybody with kids. It looked like 12 and under. They didn't ask for age verification. They just kind of were like, your kids look young. Do you want to board? And we boarded before like business class. So
once again, traveling with kids.
It really pays off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was really great. And our flight was great. The food was pretty good. And yeah, I would totally do that again for a direct flight.
How long was that flight?
7 hours maybe, because you're coming back against the wind the other direction. So it's a little bit longer.
Well, Megan, we have loved hearing all about your trip. I'm so glad that Points and Miles allowed you to treat your daughter to the ultimate 10th birthday vacation to all the Harry Potter things. If you are ready for even more Travel Mom Squad in your life, be sure to subscribe to Points Talk Premium. We are answering your questions, chatting about recent Points and Miles news, and taking you behind the scenes with us. We will put a link in the show notes to subscribe. Thanks so much for listening to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. Make sure to hit the subscribe or follow button from wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. Want to start jet setting even faster? Follow the links in the show notes to learn about everything we discussed in today's episode. And to stay connected and follow along, follow us on Instagram at Travel Mom Squad. We can't wait to see where in the world Points and Miles take you.